Just making the rounds.
I might just stay for a bit. Just to make sure that-
It's good for you.
Oh,
You got the top spot.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
I didn't even think about that, but Jody was on television. You got folders, you can bring this stuff up from.
Yeah, 'cause I didn't know where they put it. I need to.
All right, good evening, everybody. The time is 6:30. We're gonna go ahead and open up public comment. Views expressed by individuals during public comment do not necessarily reflect the views of the city of Fremont, have not been verified for accuracy by the city. As a reminder, the city council and staff are not permitted to respond to comments or questions during the public comment period. In accordance with Fremont Municipal Code Section 2-103, public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person, shall not contain items on this evening's agenda. If you are here and would like to speak, we have our sign up sheet. We'll just set it up there by the comment cards. And there, again, there's also the comment cards and looks like some candy too, so help yourself.
Yeah.
Right back.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, someone got a call in going off. Set on your key wrong, huh?
Figured it out.
Do it now.
I don't know why. I first one who said something. I'm like, it was me. Should have been.
Right, you're 2318 East Fifth Street. Tonight, I'd like to cover something that I think is of importance. It's about truth has a price. Earlier this year, the Nebraska Press Association conducted a journalism contest across the state of Nebraska, and on April 27, 2024, the Fremont Tribune was recognized for its excellence in journalism. Our local paper garnered 7 awards, with investigative reporter Jeff Forward contributing 5 of those, 4 first place and 1 second place award. One of his first place awards was for reporting on community and city governance related issues in the Freedom of Information Champion category. Tribune elites hailed his award and said it was a true testament to his dogged work to bring information to light. I couldn't agree more. This is why I was deeply saddened to learn that Mr. Forward is no longer writing for or even employed by the Tribune. This is a tremendous loss for our community. We finally had a reporter who received honors for his reporting on community affairs. Had a reporter who received first place honors for being an outstanding investigative reporter with the requisite skills and tenacity to dig, uncover, and report the truth about controversial issues here in Fremont. I was thrilled by his investigatory research and in-depth reporting. Apparently others were not. Unfortunately, there's a price associated with pushing for transparency and revealing and reporting the truth. In Mr. Forward's case, despite being recognized and rewarded for his high journalistic achievements, it appears that he had to pay a significant personal price for exposing and reporting Fremont's truth. His reporting apparently ruffled too many or the wrong feathers, so now he's gone. No real surprise here. Other reporters have tried in the past to expose and report the truth, but they were similarly dismissed. It's too bad the Tribune's officials caved to the pressure and couldn't or wouldn't stand up for journalistic freedom when confronted by some in city government or others in prominent status here in Fremont. Mr. Forward's departure is a significant loss to this community, but I'm confident that his journalistic skills and passion for the truth will continue to be used and become some other community's gain. I'm personally grateful for the truth that he helped uncover and report on here in Fremont, be it the good, the bad, or the ugly. I wish him Godspeed. In closing, I find it quite disheartening that our local paper chose not to publish this opinion piece in their letter to the editor section. I suspect they didn't want to further ruffle any feathers from the elitist or some from City Hall. If you had any part in this, I admonish you for your actions.
Barb, if you want to speak and go ahead. Okay,
Right.
Okay. I've spoken, there's a line, I guess. Okay, Barb Bushy, 2037 East First Street. I just have a comment and a request for in the future, which I know you can't answer, but I have a lot of people saying and asking me, why is the city buying these houses, buying these buildings? And for what? And if maybe sometime in the future, when you do purchase something like this, you could give us some kind of reasoning for it. I'm done.
Hi. Lynn Jean Schultz with a 2306 Jean Drive. Here you go. I just wanted to comment. I can't wait till we get to the new location, it's remodeled. As it is here, I can't hear very well. I've got these new hearing aids. I'm trying to get adjusted to those. I can hear every little page flip and pen drop and everything else. But when somebody's sitting here talking and they're talking away from me, I have a hard time hearing. I couldn't even really hear what Brad was saying. Perhaps you could have a little microphone and a little Bluetooth speaker or something that would point out to the audience. There must be something that you can do. I don't know how many months we're gonna go with this, but otherwise, you know, I might just as well stay home, so. Thank you.
Right, time is 7 o'clock. That closes open public comment. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll go ahead and open up the Board of Equalization meeting and call it to order. Again, the time is 7 o'clock. The Open Meetings Act is posted to my right here on the wall. We'll have roll call, please.
Jenkins,
Here.
Warner,
Here.
Hannah,
Here.
Lathrop. Here. Jensen,
Here.
Sukram,
Here.
Von Baron.
Here.
Vaughn,
Here.
8 members of present mayor.
Item 1 is a resolution 2024-240 levying a special tax and assessment in the amount of $192.77 against 1315 Madison Street to pay the cost of weed and debris removal and assessment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the mayor said, this is an assessment for debris removal for property. The bill remains unpaid, so we need to assess that and cover this expense.
Okay.
Happy to answer your questions, Mayor.
Questions for staff? Councilman Horner?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Seeing none, any comments from the public on this item? Seeing no comments from the public, are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, I'd take a motion. Councilman Horner?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2024-240.
Councilman Sukram?
One second.
Please call the roll.
Warner,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Jenkins.
Yes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 2 is resolution 2024-241 levying a special tax and assessment in the amount of $9,654.98. Again, this would be against Jensen's to pay the costs of the demolition and debris removal and assessment.
Again, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is for, a substantially more of a higher dollar amount for the demolition of the property that was there, and we would assess that. the bill remains unpaid. So.
Okay. Questions for staff on this item? Councilman Warner.
This time it's real. Yeah, I've just got a question. What exactly was demolished there?
You know, I looked at Google Maps today, the property, it looks like it was a residential home and it looked like it was overgrown. The image
Okay.
then was from 2007 and it looked like it was in some disrepair.
Okay, and
Process, this property, in addition to this demolition, had been through the process, our previous item for cleanup multiple times, so for probably about half the amount this time is already against this property and.
Okay.
it was trying to keep
balance
it-
brought forward kind of a thing. The only other comment I have, and I don't know if Travis is, this is an issue or not, but if you look in the agenda item and then in the invoice item, the only thing I'd point out is that the block is shown as 12 and it should be 21. I don't know if that's an issue. On the resolution, it looks like it's right. It looks like it all says block 21. I would have brought it up previously if I had have actually noticed it until just now. So I apologize for not catching that earlier, but just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if that's an issue.
If the resolution, yeah.
The resolution is all correct.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
We
all right,
can, yeah.
okay.
Any other additional questions for staff? Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none, are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Warner.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-241 levying the special tax and assessment in the amount of $9,654.98.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second.
Ganem,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Corner,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Take a motion to adjourn the Board of Equalization meeting. Councilman Jensen,
Motion to adjourn?
Councilwoman Ganem,
Second.
Jensen,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Ganem,
Yes.
Corner,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
we are adjourned. I'll go ahead and open up the city council regular meeting. The time is 7:05. And the Opens Meeting Act is posted on the wall to my right. We'll have roll call for the city council regular meeting.
Dinkins,
Here.
Corner,
Here.
Ganem,
Here.
Lathrop,
Here.
Jensen,
Here.
Sukram,
Here.
Von Baron,
Here.
Vaughn,
Present.
8 members are present, Mayor.
Okay. Next is mayor's comments. I would like to recognize the October 2024 Service Awards. Both these individuals were not able to attend. We have first Joe Walkenhorst, 30 years of service. Joe started with the city of Fremont in 1994 as a maintenance worker 2. And then in 1999, he was promoted to his current position as an equipment operator. Thank you, Joe, for 30 years of service. And then we have Garrett Jensen for 5 years of service. And Garrett started with the city of Fremont in 2019 as a police officer. So just want to thank both these individuals for their dedication to the community. So that's all for my comments. We'll go ahead and move on to the agenda. Motion to adopt the current agenda. We'll take a motion. Councilwoman Gannon.
Move to adopt the current agenda.
Okay, Councilman Vaughn.
I have a second.
Sukram,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Ganem,
Yes.
Corner,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to appointments. We have item 2, a motion to the consent to the mayor's appointments of TJ Marsh, Hunter Horrocks, and Lonnie Dooley, and the reappointments of Taylor Jepson, Scott Brown, and Dan Blackburn to the Board of Adjustment for 3-year terms. Again, it's my honor tonight to bring forward these appointments to the Board of Adjustment. As mentioned, TJ Marsh, Hunter Horrocks, and Lonnie Dooley would be new appointments. There is backup that they sent in. I appreciate them doing that. They are here in attendance and also appreciate that as well. So I would take any questions from the council on these appointments to the Board of Adjustment. If there are none, I would take a motion. These appointments. Councilman Sukram,
I'll make that motion.
Councilwoman Gannon.
I second.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Ganem,
yes,
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 3 is a motion to the consent to the mayor's reappointment of Stan Darling to the Housing Agency for a 5-year term. And this would be a reappointment of Stan Darling to the Housing Agency. Appreciate his longtime service to that board. I think he said it was 25 years. They are going through a new executive director search right now, so he wanted to finish and do another term and see that through, and they have a couple other projects going. So again, I just appreciate his leadership on this board. I would take any questions from the council on this item. There are none, I'd take a motion. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to reappoint Stan Darling to the Housing Agency for the 5-year term.
Councilwoman Lathrop,
second,
Dinkins,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Ganem,
yes,
Warner.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
then item 4 is a motion to the consent to the mayor's reappointment of Tina Barnum, Leanne Rathke, and Amanda Moaning to 4-year terms on the library board. These 3 are reappointments. And again, I appreciate their willingness to continue their service on the library board. I'd take any questions from the council. If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Horner,
I would make the motion to, for the reappointments as stated to the library board.
Councilwoman Ganem,
I would second,
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Ganem,
yes,
Lathrop.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
okay, now moving on to the consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council or staff? Councilman Horner.
I would like to remove item number 15, please.
Okay, item 15. Councilman Von Baron.
11 and 14, please.
11 to 14. Any other items from staff? Are there any items from the public to be removed? Okay, seeing none, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda. Items 5 through 10, 12, 13, and 16. Councilman Jensen,
I will make that motion.
Councilman Horner,
I'll second.
Ganem,
yes,
Warner,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
okay, item 11 is resolution 2024-244, approving the service agreement with the Greater Fremont Development Council. Who's gonna do that report for us? Okay.
I actually have an updated resolution that needs to be received in the draft.
Okay. Take a motion to receive, Councilman Jensen,
Motion to receive.
Councilwoman, Ganem,
second,
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Ganem,
yes,
Lathrop. Yes. Jensen.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you for receiving that. Jody Sanders, City Administrator. For, at the very least, the last 10 years, the city has contributed to the Greater Fremont Development Council in exchange for services rendered related to economic development activities. This contract that is being provided at this point is another for another 5-year contract. They have increased the amount, but considering they haven't increased it in the last 10 years, it's likely time to do that. They have been instrumental in bringing, the GFDC has been instrumental in bringing good quality employers to the to the area, as well as being a support to the city when the LB 40 vote was taken. They did a fair amount of education and frankly, marketing, which we as a city cannot do for that purpose. And so in the past, there had been a contract with the utilities that had been for $90,000. They're increasing the ask for that to be $115,000. We're use this as an opportunity to actually have a contract in place for the city side, if you will. The $10,000 that had been there in the past had been set aside almost exclusively for marketing the tech park. They're doing much more than that, and so using the template that we've kind of put in place for this with our service organizations, we combine them into a single contract with the 5-year term. The request is going from 10,000 for the city is going from 10,000 to 20,000, and we needed to add that portion to the resolution to afford us the opportunity to use the LB 840 dollars. Previously, the resolution had been to have $10,000 of that go toward the GFDC contract. This resolution amends that to be $20,000 as is part of the 5-year contract. I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, Jody and I kind of went back and forth on this one. I first read it, I just skimmed over it. I think it's good to point out that what we're approving is $675,000. It's an annual contract, but it goes over 5 years, and just for public information or whatever. I have no particular objection to it, but I think it's good to just add that point of clarity, that it's significantly larger than if you just skim over it as I did initially.
Councilman Jensen.
Just to be clear also, this is a contract, this is an increase on a contract that hasn't happened for 10 years. The amounts have been, that just sounded kind of familiar to me.
Any other questions from council?
No, but could there be an review of this every 5 years for increases rather than wait 10 years? Because there's other organizations that have done that too. They wait until they absolutely need it. And I don't think that's a good habit. I think it needs to be reviewed. Just like our utilities needs to be on a regular review rather than wait until we're in the hole or we need it. Then I think there needs to be a regular review.
And the
If that's a
contract is,
yeah.
the contract is a 5-year contract.
Yes, it is. And so at the end of 5 years, that's a good time to review it.
Absolutely.
Rather than say, oh, we can keep it at this rate and get by.
Councilman Horner.
I just want to make a quick comment just in support of GFDC in general on what they do for the community and for the business community at large, which I think benefits all of us here in Fremont. You know, as a realtor, I get to see it, you know, kind of firsthand as anytime there's commercial properties that are listed, you know, you can send those over to GFDC and those make their list of properties as well too. I know anytime we list or I list, I turn it into our admin and I don't have to do it. It somehow magically makes it over there, which is great to me, but at least it's there and I know it's, you know, part of the makeup, and that helps our community quite a bit. And I think just as you look around and you see some of the positive things that are happening, we all need to understand that GFDC oftentimes has a hand in a lot of that. And I think it, you know, they do it graciously, and I think they do it without a whole lot of public acknowledgement or public thanks. And so when we get a time like this where one of us can speak up, I think I'd like to do that on their behalf and just say, I think this is a great deal for the city and we should go for it. I appreciate Paul bringing it off actually, because it does give us a chance to talk about it a little bit. And and talk them up. I don't think they get that opportunity. They market us. We don't talk about them too much.
Any other questions for staff at this? Thank you, Jody. Are there any comments from the public on this item?
We're one seat over, I guess, Megan Stiles. I'm the executive director of GFDC, and I just wanted to say thanks for the kind words. We've had a very long-term relationship with the city and the Department of Utilities, and it's been a good working relationship. I'm in contact with the staff at the city and the DU on a weekly basis, and some weeks on a daily basis, and really see it as an extension of our team. And so we do provide a lot of services, and you're right, we need to come forward more often than 10 years, but really, I think it comes down to the past probably 3 or 4 years, our program of work has grown significantly because there's growth happening in Fremont, and we want to make sure that we're adequately supporting that. And so we run 5-year action plans and strategy plans, so this is kind of the perfect time. We're currently running our 2030 action plan starts in January of this year, so this is a great time to kind of have that conversation. I also wanted to point out that the city of Fremont and the Department of Utilities are both represented on GFDC's board as voting members, and so by the mayor and then also by Michelle Weiss, the chair of the DU currently. And then with this new contract, we're also adding in the utility director and the city administrator into our board, just to make sure that they're not voting members, but to ensure that there's really good continuity of conversation between the city, the DU, GFDC, and make sure that we're all going in the same direction and looking out for the best of the community in this. So I think that's a big thing that's reflected in this contract too, that we're excited to see that partnership become stronger as our community continues to grow. So thank you again for your support in the past and hopefully your support in the future.
Any other comments from the public?
Right here, 2318 East Fifth Street. Just 2 quick comments. As I was listening to the discussion previously, it looks like the original budget at $10,000 was largely spent on Tech Park. At least I think that's what I heard. Call your attention to the fact that that's not been a particularly successful venture for the city of Fremont. The other thing that I would bring to your attention is it looks like, based on the staff report, that approving this, which I'm sure you're likely to do, will create an overrun of the 2025 budget. That is, you're not implementing this on a going forward basis. After 2025, you'll be authorizing an increase in expenditures over the 2025 budget. As a taxpayer, I guess I always discourage overruns. Implementing this as a 2026 item or 2025-26 item while you're doing the budgeting for this next year would mean that you wouldn't be doing that, but acting on it in the way that it's scheduled here, you'll actually be creating a 50% overrun on the city side, or excuse me, 100% overrun on the city side. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the public?
I'll be short and sweet. Brett Richmond, I'm the current chair of the GFDC board. And again, just want to echo Megan's comments and appreciate the partnership with the city. The only additional thing I would point out is that the GFDC is largely funded by businesses in and around Fremont. And again, we're asking them, and most of them have also stepped up and made significant increases in the amount that they're giving to the GFDC to support the efforts, which I think is important to recognize. This is a public-private partnership, and that our private businesses, see the true value in GFDC as well.
Additional comments from public? Okay. Any additional comments from council? Councilman Warner?
Just want to make one more additional comment, just, in regards to marketing and what they have been doing for marketing is, you know, anything that they market is at the directive of the city. They don't get to choose what they market for us. We give that to them. So, you know, in the real estate world, when I have a buyer or a seller that I'm working for, I can give them advice. They don't always have to follow it. And, sometimes they don't, and I still have to represent them. Whether I agree with them or not, I have to represent them. I have to represent their best interest. And I have to put on a big old fat happy smile and act like it's my own idea. And that's just what you do when you're marketing for someone else. That's what your contract is, and that's what you do. So I just want to make that comment on behalf of GFDC that I'm not sure that they would always be happy to market the things we hand them, but they do it.
Well, and I'll just add, gosh, first-class cities and other cities throughout Nebraska we're all involved in economic development in some form or fashion. And so everybody kind of does it a little differently. A lot of cities will staff it inside, the city. And the cost could be 2 or 3 staff people plus benefits and everything else that goes involved with that. GFDC has a staff of 4, and the value that we receive, and you look at the amount of dollars that have come into the city that would have not come in, we're talking, 30+ million. I mean, basically over the last few years that would have not come into the city. And so not only with working to get grant dollars and that in, but to, retaining the businesses that we have, promoting small business education series and, focusing on retaining the businesses and employees that we have and increasing the wages. They really kind of do it all when it comes to what we're trying to do right now in the city from an economic development standpoint. So you got to see it as a value that we're receiving and an investment, and the return on that investment, has been great over the last few years. And I think it's going to get even more here in the future with everything that's going on. So I just appreciate the work that Megan and her team do. And again, she said, we do work closely. We have to, just with things that are going on right now, but it's in the best interest of our community, the citizens, and Fremont as a whole. And that's, to me, really exciting as we look at the future of Fremont. Councilman Vaughn.
I don't want to beat it to death, but just I would echo a lot of those same positive sentiments. And if there were no other comments, I'd make that motion to approve.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Porter,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Lathrop. Yes.
Ganem.
Yes,
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now moving on to item 14 is resolution 2024-247, approving outside fire contracts for November 1, 2024 to October 31st, 2025.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a contract for a number of entities outside the city limits, and would extend fire services to those entities on a ratio, similar to what a business entity inside the city limits would pay for that service. They're able, I believe, to get a better fire rating for that, and it impacts their insurance, so it's a benefit to them as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for staff, Councilman Von Baron?
Yeah, the only reason, and this is one I should have researched privately before the meeting, but I'm just curious, looking at the size of the businesses. For example, something like Magnus, fairly sizable business for $750 a year. Is there a correlation? Is there an additional charge now if our facilities are used, if the department is called?
I don't know all of the intricacies of the fire department, but I know they probably charge for, some services, maybe Jody.
Yes, basically the contract itself is for our professional firefighters to be the first call, in the event of an emergency. If there were to be a fire, we would do the normal fire billing. So they, just like a homeowner would, where you pay your taxes, but you still would get a bill for the insurance company to pay for the fire service itself. the same would apply to them,
So we're basically saying that we're their first call.
yes. And that helps their fire insurance when they're purchasing their weapons.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item, on the outside fire contracts from the council? Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, if there's no other questions or comments from council, I take a motion, Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-247.
Councilwoman Lathrop,
Second.
Sucrum,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Banham,
Yes.
Horner,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
and now item 15 is resolution 2024-248, authorizing the mayor to sign a contract with JEO Consulting Group to complete a housing condition and vacant lot analysis. Go
Good
ahead.
evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a contract for a study that will evaluate the condition of housing across Fremont and the ETJ, and also identify vacant lots, and the condition of infrastructure in front of the houses, for example. Are there sidewalks? Are the sidewalks in good repair? Are there curb and gutter? Does it appear that there are any drainage issues? Sometimes you can't tell for sure if there are or not, but sometimes it's very obvious. Are the roads paved in front of the houses? Are the houses in good condition? And the point of it is to help identify lots that might be available for infill development, and to also identify housing that is in very poor repair, and to map it out so that we can see it on a map and then be able to take appropriate action. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Horner,
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, I asked for this to come off and I wish I would have called you and talked to you a little bit more about it, before we got here, but, I appreciate, this coming off and us being able to talk about it now. Can you speak any at all to, do you know anything about JEO, how they're going to, what methods they'll use to approach this? Seems like a large unwieldy kind of a task to take on when you're talking about housing stock in the city and kind of assess the situation or the quality of that. In the same way with the infrastructure, can you speak
Yeah,
to that a little
sure.
bit?
They'll start with a windshield survey. In fact, they can start as soon as at the end of this week. And they'll have a scorecard. Like I haven't seen the scorecard, so I'll just give for example of what it might look like. The housing would be rated on a scale of say 1 to 5, where 1 is very poor, dilapidated, broken windows, looks like it needs to be torn down, and the 5 would be excellent condition. And so they would note on the scorecard, are there broken windows? Is the foundation crumbling? Is the paint peeling? Are there broken windows? Things of that nature to assess the housing conditions. Are there sidewalks in front of the house? Are the sidewalks in good condition? Is there curb and gutter? Is that in good condition? Are the roads paved? We know there are some roads in town that have not been paved, and how does that correlate with the condition of the housing? Are there vacant lots? Then we can take that information and figure out the size of the lots to identify areas that might be ripe for redevelopment. How many units are in the house or on the property? We know that throughout the community, there are a number of houses that have been converted into multifamily at some point in the past. There are a number of 2-family dwellings. There are a number of apartments in areas throughout the city that have been zoned single-family residential. Are these conforming or non-conforming? And then how does that tie in and help us expand our goals for affordable housing and the missing middle type of housing that the legislature has asked us to make sure that we can address? So this study is a tool to help us assess our existing conditions and address how we might be able to support affordable housing at times in the future.
So could I think of it in terms of almost like a heat map that we might end up with something like that, where we say, okay, this area over here, I mean, I would imagine that housing quality, you drive past the new houses, they're gonna score higher. You drive past the area with older housing, they may have a different score.
Right, I would imagine there'd be something like a heat map that it would help us identify areas of concern. And then we
Okay.
can look at those areas of concern and figure out, well, what do we need to address these areas? Are there zoning tools? Is it code enforcement? Are there perhaps grants available that might help people renovate their houses? Can we partner with the GFDC on grants or other types of funding for people to improve the housing stock?
And you mentioned the grants, and that was that was actually my last question was, would we be able to use something like this to maybe go out and seek grants to say, here's the part of why we're asking, here's, kind of our proof of the situation. We're not just looking for, a big city party money. We're actually going to use this, towards a specific purpose, and
Right.
here's why.
Yes, it can help us address or apply for grants, particularly in areas that meet certain criteria, or it's information that could be used to help GFDC or other entities apply for grant funding. I know Habitat has received grant funding from the state. I know other organizations have as well. This helps target areas where that infill development and grant money might be appropriately spent.
All right, thank you.
And I'll just add, the cost of development right now continues to get higher and higher when you're putting in streets and you're putting utilities, and new development is expensive. It can happen, but when we already have streets and utilities, and that's what makes infill, it's just an opportunity for us. And part of this is the vacant lot analysis as well, to see where are open vacant lots that are not being utilized, that, we already have, streets, utilities, everything there that we can help to increase our affordable quality housing, which we know we need within the community. So we believe that there's a lot of opportunity in that. So that's what this is going to help with.
Oh, one last question, and we're gonna end up with some sort of an inventory list at the end on all properties. Will there be any city properties broken out from that?
We'll know what vacant parcels exist and we'll have an idea of the condition throughout the city. So we'll have different mapping layers. And then a summary of the conditions. I would imagine they would talk about conditions in different areas and what they found.
Okay,
There will be a summary analysis.
all right. Thank you.
Yep. Any other additional questions for staff from the council? Anybody here from the public to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, if there's no other comments from council, I'd take a motion. Councilman Horner?
I would like to make a motion that we approve resolution 2024-248, authorizing the mayor to sign a contract for JEO Consulting Group to complete a housing condition and vacant lot analysis.
Councilman Dinkins?
Second.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Ganem,
Yes,
Horner,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to unfinished business, ordinance 5698 for the annexation of property located at the extension of Heatherwood Drive between Peterson Avenue and Brentwood Drive. This is for second reading. We've had this item on before, so if there's any questions for staff. Are there any comments from the public, this item? There's no additional comments from council. I would take a motion. This would be to hold second reading of the annexation. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make a motion to hold second reading of ordinance 5698.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
Horner,
Yes.
Ganem,
yes,
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
we'll have second reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, annexing by voluntary petition property located in the southwest quarter of section 18, township 17, north, range 9, east of the 6 p.m. Dodge County, Nebraska, and generally located at the extension of Heatherwood Drive between Peterson Avenue and Brentwood Drive and westward to 12th Street, extending the corporate limits to include said real estate, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date on second reading.
Now moving on to new business, item 18, resolution 2024-249 to approve the upgrading of 7 outdoor warning signs for the city of Fremont from Federal Signal Corporation. I'll have a report from Chief Burnt. Yes.
Good evening, Todd Burke, Fire Chief. What you see in front of you is to upgrade 7 of our older sirens. This last fiscal year, we added 5 sirens in areas that lacked coverage or new areas that didn't have any sirens coverage. This last month, we did this Department of Utilities, they test and maintain our sirens, which they do an excellent job. They did a siren test earlier this month, and 2 of our sirens actually failed. They were able to get those repaired, and talking with them, they said they're unable to get any parts for those older sirens, which are 22+ years old. There is a letter in the backup from Federal Signal saying that they're unable to get parts for that particular siren anymore. If you have any questions about the funding, Finance Director Jennifer, hopefully she can explain that with you. But if you have any questions, I'll be able to.
So this would be to repair or replace the
What
7?
this, on this older 7, what they're gonna do is strip all the equipment off and put all new equipment on steel poles.
Okay. Councilman Von Baron?
Just a detailed question. So we planned on 120,000 expenses
Yes.
and we're going to add an additional 125. Is there an economic reason for doing that? I understand. the
Well,
basic logic.
actually, last year, we were given a quote to do upgrades, it was like 28,000, that's up to 35,000 now.
Okay.
In a year's time, so if we just get them done right away, we can probably save some money down the road. If we just do some here this year, next year we'll do some more, the year after that, we'll do some more. We just figured we'd just get them done all at once. And now it'll probably be a good time to get them done, so hopefully they'll be upgraded by the time spring comes around for when severe weather starts coming around.
Again, no particular objection. It's just, we've had the discussion before. I realize from the state auditor standpoint, as long as you don't overrun the total amount for the city, it's not a problem, but it's just. I understand that if there's a compelling saving reason, but it's just a matter of basically adhering to the budgets that we set.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the standard that most of us have been held to in private business and other arenas, and it's a good standard to be held to. So I just, whenever possible, I'd like to see us hold to our budgets.
So for this item within the fire department, they've found areas where the cost estimates are coming in a bit lower, or they are not able to spend the money. So as a whole, the fire department is still holding to the total budget. However, in the area where he had spent, it was one of the sales tax funds, and you can't use that type of funding on civil defense, which is what the sirens are, which is why we're asking for the general fund reserves. So from a total cash used this year, it's the same, because he's gonna underspend in a different area. So we're not going over. Within the department, it's the same, but we're just asking to use some reserves for that extra.
Department budget remains intact.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Jennifer,
Thank you.
Yes.
can you repeat that part about why I didn't quite understand the part where you were saying that we were.
Yeah, so we've got,
We had one
different
area that
sales
we couldn't
tax.
use, so.
Yeah, and the sales tax, the actual ordinance and resolution says that we can use it for public safety. The definition of public safety, fire, police, it actually doesn't tell us that we can use it for civil defense. So that's why we're asking to use general fund reserves.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's technical.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the council on this item?
No. Sorry.
Councilman Horner?
No question, just a comment. If we have a situation in our ordinance that's, causing us to do these kind of accounting gymnastics, should we not be looking at that ordinance and see if we need to expand that to allow, use of funds in this other area? It seems like they're all related, civil defense or safety. I mean, pretty narrow line between those two. It seems to me like we might have identified an area where we can maybe make an improvement.
And I generally agree. I think this, the sales tax fund was voted by the public, so that is approved by the community when they voted that in, which requires us to follow whatever rules are
That's true.
behind that, and I think that's probably what the issue is that we have with this is, it's, to me, a siren is public safety, but, you know, in this instance, it's not considered that officially, so that's why we're at where we're at, but.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Is that fair? Any comments from the public? Okay. Any additional comments from council? Councilman Jensen,
If there's no additional comments, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-249.
Councilwoman Ganem,
Second,
Vaughn,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Gammon,
yes,
Warner,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
item 19 is resolution 2024-250 to select a construction management at risk contract delivery system for the police. Fremont Police Headquarters and Fremont Dodge County 911 Center project. And
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Travis J. Cox, City Attorney. This is pursuant to statute, if we want to use a construction manager at risk format to build the police station, we have to have council approved using that method. The only time we've used it before, to my knowledge, is for the library project. At that time, we created a policy. So this is just the first step in the council authorizing us to move forward with that format of a project. I'll take any questions.
questions for legal on this item? Comments from the public on this item? Okay. Seeing none, any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Horner.
I would make a motion that we pass resolution 2024-250.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Ganem,
yes,
Lathrop.
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Warner,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
And now item 20 is resolution 2024-245, creating and approving a Fremont Police Headquarters and Fremont Dodge County 911 Center Project Selection Committee as recommended by the mayor to evaluate proposals and make a recommendation to the city council. From our action from 19, 20 creates the committee, and in the backup of the packet, you'll see what's required from a committee standpoint to make the selection of the contractor. We do have, again, representative from the council, Mr. Jenkins will be on there, as well as Jody Sanders, Jeff Shanahan, Shelley Holzerlin, Chief Elliott, Troy Shaven, city engineer, Jared Boriso. So we have a good group that will be making the selection. We had, I think, 9 or so proposals from contractors that are interested. So we will, again, here in the near future, very quickly meet and evaluate that. And then we'll be able to bring forward the recommendation to the council on whatever from the committee from their meeting. So do take the process seriously. We went through this with the library expansion project. It was again very successful, on time, on budget, and that's kind of where we're at here. When you're moving a police headquarters and 911 communication center, timing is obviously very important, and it's important that we have a contractor that understands that and is on board with that. So that's where we're at with this committee, and I guess I'd take any questions. How'd I do legal? Okay. 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 Is there any comments from the public on this item?
Red River 2318 East Fifth Street. I just had a basic question with regards to Nebraska statute 132911 and what's in the staff report as the listed representation on this committee, and there's items A through E. And so I looked at the resolution and the 8 individuals that would be placed on this committee, at least for now, and it sounds like you might be adding another engineer perhaps to this list, or no?
Troy
I
Shaver.
realize, I guess you can't answer. So anyway, you have 8 on this list. And it looks like 6 of those are administration and staff. And Councilmember Dinkins is the governing body representative. I'm interested in whether or not you could articulate for myself and for the public, Mayor, how each of those individuals that are on your list correlate to the state law items A through E specifically, as to who's representing which one of those categories. And then I would ask if you could elaborate specifically on item E, on who on your list of 8 people is representative of a resident of the community.
Any other comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none, sure, I'd be happy to answer those. Yes, we did follow state statute, and then city code also has guidelines laid out. Specifically, the member of the community is Jared Boriso. Not only is he a member of the community, he is on the planning commission. He has have construction experience. Each one of those positions were thought out in their, background and experience to this process. Yes, there's a lot of city staff involved. Well, they are going to be working with the contractor on a daily basis. So, and so we are required to have, again, an engineer, which would be Troy Shaven. And we followed and met the requirement for the experience that is required by this process. So, and we were able to add additional as well. So, we expanded the committee to add more representation as well, just so that we had it covered, but, any comments from the council? Councilwoman Lathrop?
Speaking for Jared Boriso as a member of the community, I've worked with him. He has a brilliant, not only a building mind, but he'll be an excellent asset to this group.
Any other comments, Councilman Jensen?
If there's no other comments, I will just make the motion to approve resolution 2024-245.
Councilman Vaughn?
I will second.
Sukram,
Yes.
Dinkins,
I'll abstain.
Warner,
Yes.
Yanum,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0 with 1 abstention, Mayor.
Now moving on to item 21 is ordinance 5699 to adopt article 13, the small wireless facilities, to chapter 3 of the Fremont Municipal Code regarding telecommunications, small wireless facilities.
Good evening, Jennifer Dan, Planning Director. This is a collaborative effort between the Planning Department, the Finance Department, Law Department, and the Electric Utility. Back in 2019, the legislature passed a bill that allowed and encourages small wireless facilities to be located in the public rights of way and to co-locate on transmission poles, streetlight poles, utility poles. We looked at the different options for this. We do have a provider who has been inquiring, so we need to put this statute into place to follow and coordinate with state statute. And we decided some places have it in their zoning regulations. We think it's cleaner as a separate chapter. And we will coordinate together as staff. Applications will come to our department because we're equipped to process those applications. Then they'll be routed to the street department, the electric utility, finance department to make sure that everybody has input and is coordinated. And then it'll be treated similarly to a pole attachment that the electric utility coordinates and facilitates as it is now and as we move forward. If there are any areas that are of particular concern, We can suggest different locations, for example, historic districts. And the electric utility is able to do the make-ready work for the providers and then charge back the providers for the cost of that work. State statute is pretty limiting in our ability to address these facilities and requires administrative approval of them. And we're very limited in our ability to suggest different alternate locations. We modeled the ordinance after what they've done in Omaha and La Vista. And it seems to have worked there pretty well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Horner?
You know, I know this is gonna be a silly question, but it just kind of illustrates the detail that was in the, in that whole supporting document and everything. I had read in there that the device, I think, I can't remember the name of it now, it's the 4-foot, the 48-inch by 12-inch device. It's supposed to be the color of the pole. How do you control that? I mean, that's just one example of all the detail in there, but how on earth would
Yeah,
you?
as they construct it, it would be a galvanized or gray color. So
Are all of
that's
these
something that
hanging on
sticks
metal
out.
poles? Cause none of them could end up on a wood pole?
It probably would be metal pole.
Okay.
Really, some of those questions are more detailed for the electric utility. We need to make sure that they're structurally sound. You may not have noticed them if you go through Omaha. There are a lot of them that you can find throughout Omaha if you just start looking for them. There's one in our neighborhood. You drive around like, oh, wow, there's one, and I should have taken some pictures and included in the packet so you could visualize. They're generally pretty unobtrusive.
Okay.
Councilwoman Gannon?
More for my clarification, please, and so that I'm giving the right information back to, but you go under fees and costs. And if you don't pay, there's certainly an application fee that we pay. And there, an occupation tax. They pay an occupation tax. And it sounded like they don't have to pay a fee on the master fee schedule if they don't. Well, and if they pay city occupation taxes, they don't have to pay.
Right, this
Or they do
follows,
pay on the Fremont master fee schedule.
this
I guess-
follows federal law, which has 3 different types of fee schedules. And Jen is looking at me to make sure I get this right. But you can have an application fee. Then there is a pole attachment
Yes.
fee,
So that-
and then there's another use of the right-of-way fee, which we can charge unless they pay occupation tax. In that case, they would pay the occupation tax in lieu of that fee.
Okay. Sure.
So we're
Okay, I just
working on
wanted
the
to- so
application
then
forms right now
small
because
cell-
it is.
Okay, so small
Complicated.
cell providers, of course, after they pay the application fee, will pay an occupation tax. Or what specific, or the specific fee schedule from the Fremont master schedule, is that correct?
Correct. And the pole attachment fee.
Well, and the pole attachment fee. So they don't pay both or just one or
There's-
the other on this one? I just wanted to
So-
be clear.
There's an annual fee that they would pay unless they pay the occupation
Got it.
tax. In that case, under federal law, they would pay the occupation tax.
Okay,
So that's where we're all coordinating together as departments so that Jen will know to look when we have applications to say, yes, they pay occupation tax or no, they don't. So it's a cooperative effort across multiple departments.
I'm glad you're taking care of that.
Councilman Von Baron?
Yeah, and maybe this should have been obvious and I might have missed it in the write-up, but I'm assuming then we're saying that Verizon, US Cellular, someone comes in and say, I have marginal service in these areas and they apply to put these in. Is that?
Yeah, they determine areas that they feel that there's a need for the enhanced service. And then they'll meet with Nate Royak, who's with the electric utility, and talk about what facilities are available in those areas that they could attach to, or if they need a new facility of their own to put up.
So just provider initiative.
Correct.
That's fine. Thank you.
And we do have a 90-day shotgun clock, so once they make their application, we have to render a decision within that 90-day period.
Councilman Jensen.
I'm just going to ask, is there a reason to or not to suspend rules and move this to third reading tonight?
No.
Other than we didn't put that on the agenda notice for it.
No, we can let it go to two at least.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this item?
Tell me if this is an appropriate question. My name is Gene Schultz, 2306 Gene Drive in Cleveland. Has anyone given any thoughts if any harm can be done to citizens if one of these 5G small cells is put on a pole near their home? I saw in a January 24 article entitled, "Is 5G Making You Sick? Here's what experts say." In the article, they said some experts were voicing concerns. In 2017, doctors and scientists launched a petition to stop the 5G rollout in the EU, citing cancer risks. One worry was that since 5G was so new, it's 3 years ago, there hasn't been time to properly test whether it is safe. There's also a lack of scientific analyses on the potential impacts of densely concentrated areas of 5G in populated cities or on chronic 5G exposure, some experts said. One 2021 study, for example, notes genetic effects of EMF depend on factors such as frequency, intensity, cell type, and exposure duration, and the types of gene expression affected are consistent with findings that EMF causes genetic damages. Additionally, many of the government-approved rules on RF were established in the late 1990s and based on limited research. Scientists now don't think the issue is so clear, and some aren't staying quiet. To date, more than 3,500 physicians in environmental medicine, toxicology, and other specialties have united against 5G, citing main associated risks of non-ionizing radiation, according to peer-reviewed scientific literature, including cancer, cellular stress, genetic damage, reproductive changes and deficits, and neurological disorders. The National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences also notes that in the 1990s, some research found a possible link between EMF field strength and an increased risk of childhood leukemia, but the association was weak. Now, though, the organization notes in the age of cellular telephones, wireless routers, and the Internet of Things, all of which use EMF, concerns persist about possible connections between EMF and adverse health effects. And as more is learned about 5G, more peer-reviewed studies and data published in various medical journals point to the possible negative effects it may pose to health. Perhaps the council should consider what the experts might be saying before allowing these small cells to be put among the citizens. Again.
Fred Gurr, 2318 East Fifth Street. So I wanted to get some clarity. I think I understand, but for purposes of your understanding as well as mine and the rest of the public, sounds like this is much like a pole attachment. And the references are to the fee schedule where the annual pole attachment fee is listed currently at $12. There are other fees for permits, et cetera, associated with telecommunication service providers, but I'm assuming that's the section of the pole attachment fee schedule that you intend to use for these small providers. In addition to that, there's already a section in the fee schedule that surprisingly I found was small wireless facilities in the right of way. So you already have this in some manner in the fee schedule, even though we had nothing in city code relative to this specifically as you're crafting today. It looks like the small wireless amounts there do coincide with LB 184 with regards to a lot of the fees that are described in state law at around page 2021. So it looks like we were ahead of the game in some respects and adding to code perhaps in others, which is fine. And I don't really have any specific objections or anything to this, other than to say, I have some questions. When I worked for the telephone company, this was an area of work that we did in my group, pole attachments. And there was a lot of consternation over who had access to the pole and where would you locate and the safety concerns of getting from one point on the pole to the other and whether or not you could run your lines and equipment through somebody else's space that was already paid for. As I read through this, and I only read it briefly, it sounds like in large part, they're going to be attaching to the top of the pole because they're going to use antenna. My question is, can they also attach on cross arm? And if so, where do those cross arms get located if that's possible when you yourself are on the pole with cross arms many times, most times, and other providers, cable companies or others might also be on the pole and they were there first. Where's the priority for the locate if in fact it's not on the top of the pole? And are all the requisite safety concerns, and I'll direct this to council, because I assume this has all been crafted in, relative to being able to get to the top of the pole through everybody else's lines. Cable lines, power lines, et cetera, if they're mounted on the top of your pole. If this is only on a light pole, that's different. If you're talking about utility poles, which has a lot of usage with other providers, including yourself, are those all accommodated here, or is the anticipation that you're only going to be on like light poles, not electric lines, poles, et cetera? We had a lot of concern relative to them dropping lines and equipment, grounds and whatever, down through other space. I assume those have all been accommodated if they're going to do that. And then there were the weight bearing concerns for how big of an antenna and what's the weight and can your poles handle the distribution weight without creating a problem for yourself. I'm assuming that that's all been taken into account here. But if it hasn't, I encourage you to take a close look at that if you're passing this, and especially if you're thinking about passing it on a limited number of readings, to make sure that you have accommodated those safety concerns, the access and the rights of others. And certainly fair and commensurate rates was something that was really scrutinized. Since you'll be using the standard pole rate, looks like that won't be an issue. But those were some of my observations having come from this world on the telecommunications carrier side.
Any other comments from the public on that side? Any additional comments from council? Councilman Warner?
Well, I was just gonna say, if there are no other comments, I was gonna make the motion, but I see there's another comment, so.
Councilman Von Baron?
Just a general question. It does bring up a point, Travis, if we allow this, but if one of these hurts the public for whatever reason, falls off, hits them in the head, EMFs are true, whatever, who bears the liability? Is that a city liability or is that a carrier liability?
Any damage or obstruction to city property or obstruction or damage to any other user on the pole. And that's based upon the discretion of the city engineer. That liability would fall on the wireless user that we would have an agreement with.
Okay, so they basically, if the health concerns and all were true, it is the wireless user that has the liability.
Yes, we have nothing to do with the transmission. We just have to do with the space that they're transmitting.
Okay.
And we're not allowed to deny them that. So.
Okay.
The state can't say you have to do this and will put us on the hook for anything.
Very good. Thank you.
Councilman Horner.
Thank you for pointing that one out, Travis, because that was gonna be my one comment, was I was under the impression after reading the material that we don't really have a right or an ability to deny based on any of our individual concerns relative to that kind of safety. So I don't know that I feel like it's almost a moot point. Without any further ado, I would say this, if they're looking for a pole to volunteer on, there's one out in front of my house and I've got a dead zone in the front of my house. I would be more than happy to be the guinea pig and let you come test it out. So without, I would recommend that we, vote to approve ordinance 5699 to adopt Article 13, small wireless facilities.
Councilman Vaughn.
I'll second.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram.
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Horner,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes,
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor. An ordinance in the city of Fremont, Nebraska, Dodge County, Nebraska, to amend the Fremont Municipal Code by adding Article 13, small wireless facilities, to Chapter 3 of the Fremont Municipal Code regarding telecommunications, small wireless facilities, to repeal conflicting ordinances previously enacted to provide for said ability to provide effective date thereof on first reading.
All right, then we'll go ahead and move on then to item 22. Resolution 2024-251, authorizing the mayor to sign and awarding Nico Henny Contracting for the construction of the street parks fleet maintenance building.
Mayor, City Council, Jeff Shanahan, Utility General Manager. This is exciting for all the departments the Mayor mentioned. This project has been on our books for a number of years. Not sure how long, but in 2018-19, it was in the capital improvement plan, I know that. And so then we reached out to put out an RFP to hire an engineer to develop some plans for this. That was awarded to JEO. We finally got where all the documents were put together, got the bid specs out. October, we went out for bid on the project. We received 8 bids back. All of them are fairly close. There were no exceptions taken. These are basically these vendors or these contractors are gonna bid or build whatever was in the specs. So we're recommending Miko Henny as a contractor to build the street parks and fleet maintenance building. And we're requesting that we build both the main build or all of the main building, the extra building, and then include the lightning protection for a total of $9,021,000.
Any comments or questions for Jeff? Councilwoman Lathrop.
I just wanted to comment that our church used Nico Henny and was very pleased with what they offered up. So it's pretty exciting to hear that hopefully they'll be working here.
Councilman Horner.
I was just gonna, I don't have any experience using them, but I did go out on their website and just go through kind of their background. They just have a lot of existing or ongoing and then a lot of completed projects that are right about in this ballpark. This might be a little on the high end for some of what they've done, but they've just done a lot of municipal type work. And looked like just from, that general, and granted, not a very deep dive into them, just, they looked pretty legitimate and looked like they'd be right on par with this kind of work, working for a city and a municipality.
All right, any other questions for staff? Thank you. Comments from the public on this item? Case, there any other additional comments from council? If there are none, I'd take a motion. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-251.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
Second.
Dinkins,
Yes.
Horner,
Yes.
Ganem,
yes,
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sukram.
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 23 is resolution 2024-253, adopting the 2024 City of Fremont Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Oh, Nick Hansen, our Parks and Rec Director.
Nick Hansen, Parks and Rec Director. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. City of Fremont Parks and Rec has desired to develop a Parks and Rec master plan as part of the commitment to the Fremont residents to meet its city's mission to being good stewards by fostering a welcoming, collaborative, and distinct community that provides the resources necessary for a sustainable growth and an excellent quality of life. Parks and Rec are important elements of all communities and reflect positively on the quality of life of residents. The Fremont Parks and Recreation Department, in conjunction with JEO, developed this master plan to have a more structured approach, parks and recreation development and maintenance of current parks. As the city moves forward, implementation will require the commitment and leadership of elected and appointed officials, city staff, residents, other stakeholders to champion the plan's vision and project initiatives. The goal was to create an objective approach using data analysis. The master plan integrated many resources for data collection, such as a community survey, which we received over 300 responses. That's good. Community outreach and engagement events, community stakeholder groups, and a benchmark analysis with Fremont's peer cities. With this data, stakeholders, staff, and JEO were able to prioritize projects, create a list of priorities, and develop decision-making criteria to guide future parks and recreation developments. This master plan will be used as a guide for the department and will be a valuable tool for the city decision makers for years to come. This plan will help shape Fremont's mission and vision to create a better quality of life for current and future residents of the Fremont community. Sincerely, Nick Hansen. That was great.
Good job.
Thank you.
Park and Recreation Master Plan came into effect January of 2024. They had about 9 months to complete this project. Thought JEO did a heck of a job here to get the information that we were looking for. The plan was accepted and found to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan by the Planning Commission by a vote of 6-0 on October 21st of 2024, which is on page 162. If you haven't got to that one, go back to that one. It actually ties it in quite well. But we'll have Jonathan Hawk from JEO. He'll come up and give a little presentation here. Tyler, if you want to jump to the public folder. And then go to the Parks and Rec Drive. Then you'll see one that has, oh, if you can expand it further, there's a master plan and then there's the council one. Yep, council. Take a few minutes to probably load. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Hawk. Would it be all right if I pull the clicker on this?
You can have a seat over here if you like.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
I'm John Howe, JEO. I'm a landscape architect with JEO. I just kind of want to start off by saying, first of all, it's been a pleasure to work with this community and the city itself to develop this plan. This was not just, a small group of city staff working to put this together. This plan, started with the Parks and Recreation Department, which then grew to a broader stakeholder group that did include several city staff members, but also some members of the community. And then also incorporated, as Nick said, a community-wide survey that collected people's input. We were able to run that past the stakeholder group, present all of the data that we collected to that stakeholder group, and kind of work through that group to develop the goals, the vision, and kind of the outcome, the recommendation of the master plan. So as part of the data collection, when we started with this project, we were obviously working with some of the previous existing plans. Some of these are listed here on the screen, and they're also listed in the document itself. Some key points of these were, utilizing what had already been done in the previous Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the Green Print for Tomorrow. The downtown revitalization plan played a key role in the John C. Fremont Park, specifically kind of how that developed into, what was shown in this master plan today. The Dodge County Communities, Nebraska Countywide Housing Study, and the comprehensive plan played a large role in kind of showing what areas within Fremont city limits, but also outside of Fremont city limits that the city is looking to grow into. So in planning for the future, what might that look like for the Parks and Recreation network? And the long range transportation plan tied in with trail networks and kind of connection, pedestrian, bike, and various trail type connections through the city that had already been looked at with that plan. So how could that kind of tie in with the existing parks and future parks? We also pulled information from the U.S. Census Bureau and Esri to compile maps, as well as just trying to understand the demographics of Fremont and the surrounding community. And then, as Nick mentioned as well, we went through a process of mapping and collecting data on all of Fremont's existing parks and on all of Fremont's park amenities, which we'll kind of tie into later. But with the process of mapping Fremont's existing parks, we also classified parks by different means. So some of them were classified as community parks, which would be larger parks pulling from a broader area, neighborhood parks, which generally serve a more localized area, pocket parks, obviously kind of working smaller, serving mostly directly adjacent residents or that community there. But then there were some special use parks, such as athletic complexes and community gardens, dog parks, which were typically on their own in Fremont, so they didn't really fit into any of those previous classifications. But in working through that process, we were able to develop recommendations moving forward to kind of use those same park classifications and kind of how that worked with the existing both FEMA flood mapping and HEC-RAS rain modeling, which kind of the map on the top left shows the 2-year, 5-year, and 100-year rain events in Fremont. So using kind of tree canopy and heat island mapping, as well as priority growth and annexation areas, vehicular circulation maps, and of course, current zoning and future land use plans to help inform all of the recommendations that we made as part of this process. The community survey, just to highlight a couple of those points, there were questions that were specifically related to John C. Fremont and Johnson Parks, but there were also questions related to the park network and the trail network as a whole. These questions helped inform some of the goals of the project, as well as some of the specific elements that came into play with the design of John C. Fremont Park and Johnson Park. Nick also mentioned peer benchmarking. So I believe we sent out 7 peer kind of benchmark forms to other communities, and 5 other communities returned those to us. I think it was Grand Island, Kearney, Norfolk, North Platte, and Papillion. So using the information that they provided, we could compare Fremont to a more local kind of peer pool. But we also did the same thing using national numbers. So national numbers for amenities, national numbers for park staff, funding, operations, things like that. And in general, what we found was that the Parks and Recreation Department is slightly understaffed in terms of full-time employees. And Fremont's park system, in terms of the number of acres, is actually much broader than the national average for the population size of the city, meaning that with fewer staff, and more parkland to maintain, obviously, there's been decline in the conditions of the amenities in the parks themselves, which also came back in. We heard that through the community survey and from the stakeholder group. So those were all things that kind of tied everything together. I mentioned at the beginning that we actually did an amenity survey. So these are all of the amenities that we actually went out and in GIS created the map of each one of these within all of the parks within Fremont. The main purpose for that was so that the Parks and Rec Department and the city could use this to both kind of keep a tally of how many amenities they have, but also to help plan for future budget expenses and to help track life cycle replacements. So if the city knows, you know, this playground or multiple playgrounds are in poor condition and they're going to be updated or replaced in the near future, that should be able to help them budget for that. For any of those future expenses. With each of these amenities, we also analyzed them in terms of looking at where they were located within the city. Showing kind of an industry standard service area for each of them. So in this case, we were looking at Diamond Fields. The industry standard access for that would be a 5-minute drive. And the nationally kind of recommended level of service for that would be providing 1.7 Diamond Fields for every 5,000 residents. Currently, for Diamond Fields, Fremont already has 2.7 fields for every 5,000 people, just in terms of what the city is providing. But if you combine what public groups or public properties provide with what the city is providing, you end up with 3.5. All of that to say, in looking at what's existing now and in counting what's there now and in looking to the future, Fremont has a high number of all amenities. The only things that we kind of discovered through this process was that some of these amenities might not be distributed as evenly throughout the city itself. So in looking at 2040, it's not necessarily that you need to add more parks, you need to add more amenities, but essentially maybe look at redistributing some of those amenities so that it covers and provides kind of that service to more of the community itself. As I mentioned, community and stakeholder group helped develop the goals, kind of through the visioning portion of the project. Some of the maps that came out of this and the recommendations that came out of this, I'm kind of saying that they're part of another phase, but they started envisioning, they kind of solidified in the planning and design phase. One of these plans that I mentioned would be kind of the future park network expansion, looking at a combination of a lot of elements, and I'll try to kind of summarize this as briefly as I can, but looking at his future growth areas as well as overlaying future residential zones or future residential land uses to see in the future, as the city is expanding, you're looking to expand your park system. Where could you locate parks that would provide an even distribution of the parks themselves so that they would be within approximately a 15-minute walk for everyone in future developments. So looking at that, also looking at kind of the priority of those. So which ones might be of a higher priority to be looking at now in terms of what developments already what developments already kind of in the process, and then which ones might be further out in the distant future. We also did the same thing with the trail network, looking at primarily focusing on connecting through the heart of the city. And then in the future, kind of extending those trail connections out to the adjacent kind of future parks and future residential developments. And then this plan just kind of shows how those all intersect. John C. Fremont Park Master Plan. There was an initial concept that was done as part of the downtown redevelopment plan that was focused on redevelopment of the streetscape to, I believe, increase development along the street there in the buildings themselves. As we were looking at kind of the layout of John C. Fremont Park, some of the things that came into play that basically created the shape that you're looking at now is having a very strong north-south access along Park Avenue. And that being, as part of that previous plan, a very heavily pedestrian corridor, whether that's for future markets, whether that's for John C. Fremont days, but having that kind of be the organizing point or the main feature that we wanted to tie into with this new plan would then serve as kind of a direction for us to locate the amphitheater in the center of that park, kind of on the north side, along with a basketball court, a couple of smaller shade structures or shelters, playground and splash pad and restrooms, and then trying to keep as much of the existing tree canopy as we could, while also updating the streetscape along the south side of the park, the east side, and the west side. All of this was run past the stakeholder group, but we also met with John C. Fremont Days. Is it commission?
Yeah.
The commission, just to kind of get their input on this. I will say that this is still master plan phase, so just because this is shown in the master plan document itself doesn't mean that things won't change slightly or completely in the future, you know, depending on budget, depending on priorities of the community. But this layout was focused primarily on the function of John C. Fremont, both during John C. Fremont days, but also every day. As part of these two park master plans, we also looked at phasing. I'll say again that phasing, as it's currently shown, is based off of what the priorities were at the time of development of this plan. As funding, as priorities change, you know, as potentially different developments occur on the south side of the park, you know, things can change a little bit, but this was to give a good estimate on what costs might be associated with each of the phases to kind of change from what's there today to what's shown on this plan. We also looked at Johnson Park Master Plan. On this plan, north is to the right. A little different to look at it this way, but looking at this project in coordination with some previous plans that were done, this project incorporates mass grading that would help with flood storage for the city of Fremont, affecting a very broad area on the east side of the city. But it would also provide an opportunity for an outdoor and an indoor, basically kind of tournament style setup for soccer. As well as some improvements around the water itself, such as ADA access to the water from a dock, as well as canoe and kayak launch, and then several fields on the north side of the site. All of the parking that's shown on here is also designed to accommodate a fully basically fully staffed and fully operational tournament that could be hosted out here. And then, of course, the estimates that went along with those phases. This park obviously has much larger estimates with each phase. Some of those could be broken down in the future based on funding as well as based off of priorities as far as development of the park goes. The master plan also pulled together organizational kind of decision-making framework as well as staffing. And then, as Nick mentioned, policies connected to the master plan goals with specific actions to support those goals that the city can pursue in the future. Also provided kind of a facility life cycle. So looking at the amenities as well as structures themselves, you know, do they need just a minor refresh? Do they need a major refresh? Do they need to be basically just taken offline? What might that look like? And then looking at operations fees and cost recovery goals. And the final thing that I'll kind of touch on is that we also, in going through classifying the existing parks, we also looked at what amenities were being provided in those existing parks, what programs were being provided in those existing parks, what kind of nationally, other parks and recreation departments were providing within those classifications. And so we provided or created essentially, park prototypes that the city can use moving forward, both with their current parks, but also with future park developments that kind of highlights a lot of the things that can be included within each park type, but then also showing with each existing park within that classification, what is included that's kind of compared to the ideal prototype. Sorry, I was probably a little too long, but there was a lot that was covered in the 260 pages.
Yeah, right.
And we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from or comments from the council? Councilman Gannon?
I'd certainly like to say thank you to everyone that had been involved. It's quite a comprehensive plan for our city going forward. And I did have a question just to expound on some of the coordination that you have between some of the stakeholder groups, like Midland College. I'm sure was probably represented, maybe not listed, and our public school system as well as the groups that you have listed for the
Yes.
coordination going forward.
So a couple things on the stakeholders. Some of the stuff was reached out. Sometimes there's overturn where you might have reached out to them, but somebody might have left at that time, so then it can get built. But doesn't mean that we still don't reach out to the stakeholders that might not have been part of this plan. We're still gonna reach out to people.
Oh, yeah.
Always to make sure everything works accordingly.
That's why I was asking about the coordination going forward with those groups.
Oh, yeah.
And
We'll
yes,
coordinate.
a lot of that was addressed, so thank you, including John C. Fremont Days, so appreciate that.
Councilman Jensen?
I just another little comment. This is something that just for the sake of the public to understand. I mean, you looked at some of those numbers out there and some of them look pretty big. And with the stuff we've already got on our plates, but this is going 10 years out. This isn't something that's going to, we're looking at starting breaking ground in April or anything.
Some of them, yes.
Mhm.
I mean, you gotta look at John C. Fremont Park, that amphitheater that's moving forward because we already have that grant. There's already funding for that. There's CIP stuff towards Johnson already, but yes, it's not like we're going to just build everything by tomorrow or next year. This is a decade of future guidance.
Nick, I definitely appreciate, your leadership and, a few takeaways for me kind of going through this. Number one, quality of life is extremely important to keep people here in Fremont and attract people to Fremont, and our parks are a huge part of that. And the other thing is the amount of acres and land that we have with the amount of staff that we have. Just want to say thank you for all the efforts that your team does. A lot of it's unseen that go to maintaining our park system, which is really expansive. We have a ton of amenities for our community to experience all kinds of different things throughout the parks. And so I feel like this plan, again, is that long-term vision that, we really need. And, to Mark's point, yes, I mean, some of the price tag on these, it's going to take a commitment from the whole community for some of these projects. But we needed to understand what the need was, not only with the upgrades that we're going to do to Johnson Park or Johnson Lake and John C. Fremont, but also what we need to do to our existing parks and, upgrading bathrooms and maintaining those existing parks and how we can do that too. So, which you already do a great job of. So we got you have a lot on your plate with this plan. But over 300 respondents we received, and it was a long survey. I mean, it was
a long survey.
Very in-depth survey. We had many stakeholder meetings where we talked about all these different things throughout the plan. So there was a lot of thought, a lot of engagement, a lot of work put in, and that you got to have a vision, right? And so I think this provides us with what we needed. Any other comments for that, Councilman Moore?
Comment, a question. Comment is, and you brought it up, Joey, or somebody did, the long-term nature of this thing. You know, when I was looking at the Johnson Park, I'll just use that as a example. When you look at the fields and so forth, you talk about tournaments. The one thing to keep in mind is that, yes, this does cost money, but this also becomes an attractant for people to come from out of the community. You know, I spent about 13 years on a swimming USA swimming deck at competitive swim meets, and I can tell you, we would go out of town and we would oftentimes stay overnight in small communities. And when you bring about 300 swimmers, in that case, swimmers into a community, and you're staying for an extended period of time, folks are spending money in that community, and that has an impact. It has an impact on businesses, and it has an impact on the vibrancy of the community. The question I would have is, because this is a long-term project, how much flexibility is built in where you can take other things that might be changing? And I'm going to use Fremont Park as an example. We've got a police station coming up. It's now going to be on the southeast corner of that area. And I could almost see that whole area transforming through there to become a centerpiece for I mean, that whole area has the potential, in my opinion, to kind of recenter the focus of downtown area. There's a lot going to be going on there over the next coming years, and how could that designed and maybe incorporate some of that to where it all kind of feels like it flows seamlessly together? And it's just, even though it is these different sections, could it ever one day become something that almost feels like you're just one seamless piece going through there? And there'll be other places like that. I can imagine out at Johnson Park as other things build up around that, et cetera. So how flexible is this process?
Well, I'd say there's the flexibility. I mean, it's a guidance. It's something there that gives us the guidance for 10 years. And obviously, the biggest part is when they combined all those plans together on page 162, that's where it all comes into being able to help each other's departments out. This is one of those where this master plan would be able to help a comp plan, or a comp plan would be able to help the master plan. There's nothing that says set in stone that, well, besides the amphitheater at that spot, it's just phenomenal. I think that's the greatest spot ever. If you've visioned that one, so
literally that will be built on stone, kind of concrete.
it will be concrete, yeah, it's not moving after we put that on there. But there's always the flexibility, obviously, that comes to any plan.
All right,
Yes.
good stuff.
Specifically John C. Fremont Park, with the amphitheater and the bathroom grant, that's why this was important to go through the process with the committee and figure that out. So it gives us what we need, so.
And when we talk about flexibility, that's the reason why we ask for the phasing. Just because it's phase 1A or 1B, there might be a 1C in there that we might come to that says, we need a 1C, even not a phase 1, 2, 3, we might need another A, B, C, or D, so.
All right.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any comments from the public on this? Okay. Seeing none, any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Jensen?
I'll make the motion to adopt resolution 2024-253.
Councilman Horner?
I'll second the motion.
Warner,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Supram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 24 is resolution 2024-254, authorizing the mayor to execute the first addendum to the purchase agreement with RBR Bank. Legal, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, Travis Jacot, city attorney. This is being brought forward, as you know, we entered into that purchase agreement to purchase the bank property back in August. And the parties have been working, since that time to reach an agreement on covenants that are required for our building and their building for the whole development of the site. RBR Bank has been working with their architects and their engineers, finalizing their plan. They had a general idea, but now they're getting down to the nitty gritty of it. And they've been working to demolish the site, which, from what we've heard, you know, the tunnels under the bank and everything was pretty extensive of a job to complete. So while we've been working on that, we realized closing was not gonna get completed as quickly as we had liked. But we're excited that progress is still moving forward and everything looks like it's coming into line with what the general vision for that area was. We haven't had any hiccups. This is just strictly logistics of this process. And we just want to set the closing date right now for March 15th or before that. And you'll see the extra caveat that should we need more time or we want to close much sooner than that, that we could do that by agreement of myself and Mark Mitchell, counsel for RBR Bank. Yeah, we're excited to keep going with this and I'll take any questions.
Questions for legal on this addendum? Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, I'm just not having really walked through a process like this. What's the time schedule for the redevelopment plan, the TIF application? How does that all fit in?
They have to develop a redevelopment plan, which we haven't seen yet. But based on what the agreement says and my discussions with their if completed prior to closing. The things we need to complete prior to closing are those covenants. And their application for TIF, I'm not sure of their timeline. Once the property is demolished, I think they'll have a better idea of valuation for that on their end. And that'll come through the normal process, just like any other application.
Yeah, and there of course would be no TIF on city property.
Correct.
I mean, that'll be exclusively there. Is there any given, you said it was mostly just procedural. Is there any specific reason for the holdups? Just any major obstacle?
There really hasn't been. I do think practically speaking, the bank has, as an organization, has to get architects, engineers, and their board in a room. And I think in order to set up that meeting, it just takes a few weeks to get, you know how hard it is to coordinate meetings with all sorts of professional people. And you have the grand scheme of what you want, getting down to, well, you need to put a fire hydrant here, or you need to do certain things to drastically change schematics a little bit. So they're dealing with putting those together, and those will eventually be formalized in the CCRs that we reach with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Any comment from the public on this item?
We see for the record.
Yeah, we have a document. Okay, I guess I'd take a motion to receive the document. Councilman Von Baron.
So.
Is there a second?
I will
Councilwoman Gannon.
second.
Okay, Jenkins,
Yeah.
Porter,
Yes.
Ganem,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
No.
Sukram,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
No.
motion carries 6-2.
We'll pass this out. Okay, go ahead.
Order 2318 East Fifth Street. Keep my comments very brief in this regard. The document that I provided you is a suggestion I'd like for you to entertain with regards to amending the addendum that's before you tonight in the packet. What I handed out shows you the original language that was in the agreement that says, you know, on or before September 1st. Was the closing date unless otherwise agreed to by the parties. The emphasis being on the parties. The addendum that's being proposed in front of you tonight says essentially the same thing, except that it will be mutually agreed by counsel, legal counsel of the parties. The suggestion I would make to you is that you should strike counsel for each of and just say, unless mutually agreed upon by the parties. Now, why do I suggest that to you? I believe that this agreement was one that was your authority to grant in the first place. It is your authority, in my opinion, for you to grant the extensions. Not for someone else, even though they might be your legal representatives, to do it without your and the public's consultation and knowledge. The original language in the agreement said that the parties needed to agree to extensions. I think that's the appropriate measure for that, and I would hate to see you delegate or concede your authority over changing of the agreement, even the dates of closing, to someone other than yourself. You are the approving body for the city of Fremont, and as a taxpayer, I would prefer that you actually are engaged in and have and retain the authority to do contract approvals, contract extensions, or modifications to contract language. To the extent that further delays might take into account the need for further extensions beyond March, I would think that you and the public ought to know what those are, rather than to just have legal counsel for both sides agree to grant extensions without necessarily having had full consultation with you and or knowledge of the public. So I encourage you to adopt and approve the amendment, which is minor, but puts the authority, leaves the authority, let's say, with the council where it was in the original agreement. The parties must agree to extensions rather than the lawyers must agree to extensions. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public on this item? Any additional comments from council? Councilman Horner?
Not a comment, but a question for council. If if we were to adopt the amendment, or not even the amendment, if we were to adopt the resolution 2024-254 as stated, does that preclude notification by you to the city that you would be extending the closing date? I mean, would that be done in a vacuum, or I mean, are we talking about something that is more for expediency's sake on an agreement that's already been signed, and now we're just talking about maybe having to make some decision to keep things moving forward in a timely manner? My concern, I guess, is holding things up is that the longer we delay, the more this could cost us, and we don't want delays if we can. So can you speak a little bit to that for the council?
Yeah, certainly. I have a duty to consult with city administration and council with whatever action we'll be taking on this. This just allows, if we need to push closing back, that we wouldn't have to go through the process of coming to council again, just to move if it's a week or if it's a few days, or if it's a month. However the process is going, council will be kept up to date, as has been the case from the beginning of this whole thing. And this is strictly just a procedural matter that allows it to move forward in a more efficient manner, I would say.
Councilman Von Baron?
As I understood the resolution, the only reason that you would not change the date, whatever the sole authority, if there were new facts, there were new timeframes, if there was any new development, those would be brought to the council. But otherwise, if it was a routine matter, you just agree, you could agree to extend or shorten the date.
The way the addendum is written, there's no specific reason why the matter could be, closing could be moved. But effectually speaking, yes, your reading of it is correct.
If I could just make one more comment for clarification, the use of the language is a common use of language in any contract that I write when I'm on the buy side, is I always make a statement of honor before, so that we don't have to do any additional amendments if we want to move it up. And so we would only have to do an amendment if we wanted to move it back. So that honor before language, I actually kind of like, because we're approving that we can move it up. I mean, there's no reason for us not to want to move it up, I would suppose. So I like the honor before language. I guess at question is whether or not we're going to approve the attorneys, the two attorneys mutually agreeing. And I have to assume that as they are representing their clients, they aren't going to make that mutual agreement in a vacuum. That's just what I'm assuming, is that an attorney is gonna consult their client. They're not just gonna. This isn't a matter of us giving a general agency to an attorney, and that they can then, commit us, into things that we don't want to be committed into. So I mean, that's the way I had assumed it and read it. And I don't feel like, I guess my opinion is we're not so much delegating a power from the council as we are granting a trusted advisor, the ability to help us move things along. So I mean, that's just for what it's worth for the other 7 of you, that's my opinion.
Councilwoman Lathrop?
And this is specific to only the closing date, is that correct?
Correct.
Any other questions? Now I would take a motion. Councilwoman Deanna?
I move we approve resolution number 2024. That the city council and the mayor is authorized to sign the addendum to the purchase agreement with RVR Bank dated August 7th, 2024.
Councilman Sucrum?
I'll second that.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sucrum,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Ganem,
Yes.
Horner,
For a question of clarification before I cast my vote, we are approving it as currently stated in the supporting material.
Yes,
Without
2024-254, correct.
Yes.
Dinkins.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen,
Motion to adjourn?
Councilman Horner,
Second.
Ganem,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Sucrum,
Yes.
Von Baron,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
Dinkins,
Yep.
Horner.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
you're adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you.
Eat it right now.
All right.
We know who the thoughtful council